Well, good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We started last week, animals and humans, and we still have some questions on it. So we stopped on 596. So we're going to ask Philip to start reading for us from 597.
597. Since animals possess intelligence that gives them a certain degree of freedom of action, is there a principle independent of matter in them? Yes, and it survives their body. Is it a soul like that of humans? It is a soul, depending on how you define this word, but it is inferior to that of human beings. There is the same difference between the soul of animals and that of human beings as between the soul of human beings and God.
Okay, so some important concepts here, right? So we studied last week that animals possess, we can call intelligence. It's not intelligence in the sense that we human beings have intelligence, but it's a rudimentary intelligence that gives them a certain degree of freedom of action. And then Kardec asks if there is more than the animal than just the physical body. And the spirits answer yes, and it survives their body. We know that we call it the spiritual principle, right? For didactic terms to separate what is the spirit from the evolution before becoming an individual spirit, we call it the spiritual principle that goes from the mineral to the vegetable to the animals until we become an individualized spirit. It is said that in the latest phase of the evolution through the animals, on the mammals, it's already an individualized spiritual principle, not a spirit. And then Kardec asks if it's a soul like that of humans. And the answer from the spirits, again, depends on how we define words, right? So it is a soul if we want to call it a soul, but it is inferior to that of the human beings. And inferior here means less evolved. Spiritual principle, still not individualized spirit. When you are in a spiritual principle, you are learning in the animal phase, aggregation, disaggregation. In the vegetable phase, the autonomic functions. In the animal phase, you add instinct and some rudimentary intelligence. When you reach the human phase, you add the development of free will, right? Which is a question that we will have very soon here. But one thing that is very important here, and the translation there in the book was wrong. The original is there is the same difference between the soul of animals and that of human beings in terms of distance than between the soul of human beings and God. So we are as far from where we were a spiritual principle in the animal phase, in the later stages of the animal phase, as we are far from reaching God, meaning becoming a perfected spirit. So for us to have an idea how much we have already progressed, because if we look at how far we are from reaching perfection, reaching God, we can understand how far we have come since we started as a spiritual principle. We finished the evolution of the spiritual principle and became an individualized spirit. Okay? Go ahead, Philip.
598. Does the soul of an animal maintain its individuality and self-awareness after death? It maintains its individuality, but not its self-awareness. The intelligent life remains dormant.
It's an interesting answer from the spirits, right? So again, individuality here, we can talk about the latest phase on the evolution as mammals, because the spiritual principle animating less evolved animals animates a group, right? I gave the example a couple of weeks ago of the fish, right? You see the fish, how you call a school, the school of fish, they move all together, right? It's one spiritual principle animating all of them. Now, when you reach the phase of a cat, a dog, or a horse, is already one spiritual principle for one animal. So when it goes back to the spiritual world, maintains its individuality. Normally, comes back immediately for a new existence. Again, it's not reincarnation, because reincarnation presupposes, we use it for human beings, because it presupposes the idea of progressing based on what we did and facing the consequence of what we did and learning for the future. Because animals do not have karma, they are not responsible for their actions, so they don't have consequences of their actions. There is no need, there is no reincarnation. There are new existences or new incarnations, if you want. But to use the same way we don't use reincarnation for perfect spirits, right? We don't say that Jesus reincarnated on earth. Jesus incarnated on earth, because spirits, when they are progressing, they need to reincarnate. When they reach the level of perfect spirit, they no longer need to reincarnate, they can incarnate. Again, it's words. It's for us to have to put everything in place to have an easier understand of the process. Okay, so the self-awareness is something. Do animals have self-awareness? Yes, they do, right? Because they know that they exist. They try to defend themselves. They don't have conscience of their existence, and we're going to see more of that. But they have self-awareness. The after death, the spirit says that they don't have self-awareness, that the intelligent life remains dormant. But it's there is no use for them to stay in the spiritual world unless they are of service to spirits there. We hear André Luiz describing in some of his books animals in the spiritual world. These animals, they can be this type of animals, that they can be mental formations of the spirits, not real animals. But if they are of use to spirits in the spiritual world, they can stay there for a period of time and then come on a new existence. Yeah, then we will have more questions about that later. Okay, anything to add here? I don't know if yeah. I don't know if anything you said last week that no. Okay. All right.
599.
Yeah.
Do the souls of animals have the choice to incarnate in one kind of animal over another? No, they do not have free will.
Simple and direct. They don't have free will, so they cannot make choices. Now, when we talk about the primitive human beings, right? They don't have the choice of choosing the new incarnation, because they are not even aware of how it works. So they go to the spiritual world and come back on a following the natural laws I always forget esteira rolante, rolling. Let's call it no esteira rolante, automatic conveyor belt. Yeah, that's the natural law. It's a conveyor belt. You know it follows the natural law, and the reincarnations of the human beings in the very beginning of their evolutionary path follows the conveyor belt. So animals, of course, they will follow the natural laws and come to a new incarnation. without any, they are not aware of themselves. So there is no free will there. Simple. Okay.
600. Since an animal's soul survives its body after death, is it errant like that of a human? It remains in a type of errant state because it is not tied to a body, but it is not exactly an errant spirit. Errant spirits think and act of their own free will, while the souls of animals do not have the same ability. Self-awareness is the main attribute of the spirit. An animal's soul is classified after death by the spirits responsible for that task, and it is almost immediately utilized. It does not have the freedom to connect with other creatures.
Yeah, so what is an errant spirit? Is a spirit in the spiritual world between incarnations. So all spirits in the spiritual world that are not perfect spirits are spirits, errant spirits. That's the definition of the Spirit's book. But errant spirits think and act on their free will, and animals don't have that. So you cannot say that they are in an errant state. Again, these are words, but just to define where things are. So they are in the spiritual world, like they say here, an animal's soul is classified after death by the spirits responsible for the task. Of course, there are spirits responsible for everything. So there are spirits responsible for the mineral kingdom, for the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom. So there are spirits that will take care of the process. But because it's an automatic process, there's not much for the spirits to do. It's just a supervision of, redirecting this spiritual principle for the new incarnation or the new existence. I rather use the word existence, right? It's almost immediately utilized. You see the spirits telling us how it works. It does not have the freedom to connect with other creatures. There is no, when the animals are in the spirit, the animals are in the spiritual world, unless they are serving a purpose, they won't be there. They will already be in the new existence state, right? And well, the next question is law of progress, so let's leave for next question.
601. Do animals obey a law of progress like humans? Yes, and it is for this reason that animals are more advanced in the higher worlds where humans are more advanced. They possess more developed means of communication. However, they are always inferior to humans and act as their intelligent servants. There is nothing irrational in this statement. Imagine that our most intelligent animals, the dog, the elephant, and horse, had a body structure fit for manual labor. What could they not accomplish under the leadership of humans?
Again, there is the answer from the spirits and there is the commentary from Kardec, right? So the spirits are telling us that the law of progress is everywhere. It's a natural law. So everything is progress. Worlds, the universe, whatever inhabits everywhere, it's progressive. That's the natural law, one of the divine laws, and we are going to study next, after we finish the three kingdoms, we are going to study the moral laws, one of which is the law of progress. So it's only logical to think that in more evolved worlds, animals will be more evolved. But if we cannot even have the conception of ourselves more in a more evolved world, we cannot really imagine how an animal will be in an evolved world. We just have to accept they will be more evolved than the animals we have here on Earth. if we want to think, compare, let's say that a dog is more evolved than an ant, right? Is this the more evolved that they are? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think we can have a good an imagination and understanding of what they are in more evolved world. The comment from Kardec, first, it's interesting that he says the most intelligent animals are the dog, the elephant, and the horse, right? Maybe at that time of Kardec, that was the animals that were considered more evolved. Nowadays, we have some different understanding of other animals that are more intelligent than others, right? The dog continues to be there, the horse, but also, you know, cats and even dolphins. Yeah, that is not a mammal, right? But it's more evolved than others. And then Kardec, you know, of course, what he does is, at that time, animals were very important for labor, right? We depended on animals in the middle of the 19th century for labor. So Kardec is imagining here that more advanced worlds will have more advanced animals that will be more useful for the labor of the more advanced world. Of course, he didn't, maybe he didn't imagine that we would not need animals as much as we needed at that time, because a lot of things nowadays no longer need animals, but we still use animals for a lot of labors, right? So, of course, more evolved world, more evolved utilization of animals, and much more important, more humane utilization of animals also, because as more evolved spirits, we'll treat animals with much more respect and understanding that we have nowadays, which is important also. Okay.
602.
So true.
Do animals progress like human beings through the action of their will or by circumstances? By circumstances, and that is the reason there is no atonement for them.
Yes, animals act by instinct. And instinct in animals prevail over everything. Of course, if you put two plates of food, they are going to choose one of them. Maybe they will eat both, but they will start by one that they prefer. So you are going to say the prefer is the intelligence, a rudimentary intelligence, but mainly instinct, right? So as it is the instinct that makes them act. And because it's all instinct, there are no consequences. Karma is a consequence of wrong things that we do, right? If they don't have a choice, we have choice, right? When we create karma, when we make a mistake, we do not learn from it, and we repeat the mistake. That's when we create karma. It's not when we make a mistake because we didn't know. There is no karma. Okay, I always say, give the example, right? When you know that you learned something because you made a mistake, and you repeat the mistake, then you create a karma. Animals, they don't learn, so they are going to. Do they learn or not to make some mistakes? Yes. You know, they will learn. If they burn themselves in a place, they are going to avoid that place. But this is all instinctive, right? It's not a conscious learning, it's an instinctive learning that some more evolved animals have. So there are no consequences, there is no atonement. That's obvious. That's why there is no reincarnation. Okay.
I think the most important thing is circumstances. Because there is intelligence, as we accept zoology and biology, have intelligence, rudimentary intelligence, lesser intelligence, or resource intelligence. This learning, there is intelligence, but it's extremely limited, and limited by the divine laws, because all their progress is met by circumstances. Horses are progressing through the circumstances. A baby horse is not gonna learn from a horse. A horse that is born today, you have pretty much the same ability as a horse of 50 years ago or 200 years ago. Human beings are here. The intellectual cognitive abilities of humans of today are much greater than the humans of 300 years ago. The horse is still the same. The biology is by circumstances. We, because we have this elevated degree of intelligence, we have free will, and our progress, we create using our intelligence, our free will, and our conscience. So the most important here is circumstances, not by free will, not by making decisions. Horses will progress regardless of what they do or don't do. But there is intelligence in the sense that the animal was exposed to some trauma. We will avoid that circumstance again. That is valid for that specific animal, not for the whole horses, not for the whole dogs.
Yeah. Okay.
603. Do animals have knowledge of God in higher worlds? No. Human beings are gods to them, as spirits were once gods to human beings.
Again, what the spirits are saying here is animals will be animals in higher worlds. Will be more evolved animals, but will be animals. And animals have no conscience of God because they don't have consciousness of their own progress, free will, etc. Right? So it is, the spirit says human beings are gods to them. The adoration that animals sometimes have that some types of animals have for human beings could be compared. I think that's what the spirits are trying to say here, that human beings are gods to them, right? Okay.
604. As the advanced animals from higher worlds are inferior to humans, it would seem as though God created intellectual beings destined for eternal inferiority. Such an arrangement does not appear to comply with the unity of design and progress evident in all God's creation. Everything in nature is connected by a link that your intellect cannot yet grasp, and the most apparently incongruent things have points of contact that humans will never understand in their current state. They may catch a brief glimpse of them by exercising their intelligence. However, it is only when the intelligence has reached its full development and frees itself from the prejudices of pride and ignorance that human beings will be able to clearly understand God's work. Until then, their narrow scope of thought causes them to look at everything from an inconsequential point of view. God cannot be self-contradictory, and everything in nature obeys the harmony of general laws that never deviate from the transcendent wisdom of our Creator. So is intelligence a common property and a point of contact between the souls of animals and humans? Yes, but animals only have the intelligence of material life. In human beings, intelligence yields moral life.
Okay, so the question from Kardec here is that has God created beings that are destined for eternal inferiority? And this is a mix of what animals are physically and the the intelligent principle that animates the animal, which are different things, right? Like the same thing with us. I am not my physical body. I have a physical body. My physical body is subject to the surroundings, to the physical world where I live, the necessities, reacts, and everything. But I am not subject to the physical body in the sense that when the physical body no longer exists, ceases to function, I will return to the spiritual world and continue my journey as an eternal spirit. So if we think of the animals here, yes, when the animals are eternally inferior to humans, but not the spiritual principle that animates the animal. That is in progress, and that will become eventually a spirit, an individual spirit. That's why the spirits say everything in nature is connected by a link that we still cannot understand. But we will understand, and they say here, when we reach full development, when we reach perfection, we'll be able to clearly understand God's work. We will understand God's work when we reach perfection. Until then, our narrow scope will look at everything with our limited abilities of understanding it. So then Kardec asks if intelligence is a common property and a point of contact between the souls of animals and humans. Everything is in progress, right? But when you are in the animal phase, the animals have a material life, and everything that relates to the material life, the intelligent principle goes through that life and then moves to another animal, different animal on same type of animal, different type of animal, always progress, right? So, but the difference is in us humans, we use our intelligence to help develop our moral side, right? Through our intelligence, we can analyze and reflect and help our moral evolution. The two wings of evolution, the moral and the intellectual one pushes the other. We have to evolve on both. We don't evolve on both simultaneously. One is, normally the intellectual is ahead of the moral. Very few people have the moral more advanced than the intellectual. That's the exception, because the intellectual is easier. It's just accumulating knowledge, right? The moral, we have to eliminate imperfections. But the intelligence yields moral life, helps our moral evolvement. Animals don't have a moral evolvement, right? It's just, as Elmo was explaining, the rudimentary intelligence that doesn't yield anything morally, right? Okay.
605. If we consider all the points of contact that exist between humans and animals, does it not seem as though human beings have two souls, namely an animal soul and a spiritual soul, and that if they did not have the latter, they might still live as wild animals? In other words, animals are similar to humans, minus the spiritual soul. According to the good and bad instincts of human beings, are results of the predominance of one of these two souls? No. Human beings do not have two souls. Their bodies have instincts resulting from the perception of their bodily organs, and they have a dual nature, the animal nature and the spiritual nature. Through their bodies, they participate in the animal nature and their instincts, while through their souls, they participate in the spiritual nature. So, besides their own flaws that they must discard, do spirits also have to struggle against the influence of matter? Yes, The lower the spirit, the tighter the link between spirits and matter. Do you not see? No, humans do not have two souls. There is only one soul in a single being. The souls of animals and those of humans are distinct from one another, so that the soul of the one cannot animate the body created for the other. While human beings do not have animal souls that place them on the same level as animals, they do have animal bodies, which often drag them down. Their bodies are endowed with life and have instincts that are unintelligent and limited to their survival. When they incarnate in human bodies, spirits contribute the intellectual and moral principles that make them superior to the animals. The two natures in humans, intellect and morality, constitute two distinct sources of passions, one springing from the instincts of their animal nature and the other due to the impurities of the spirit, which are in sympathy with the rudimentary nature of animals' desires. As spirits become purified, they gradually free themselves from the influence of matter, while I can't see the rest. Under the influence, they come close to the nature of animals. Please raise it again. When delivered from that influence, they raise to their true distinction.
Destination.
Oh, sorry, destination.
If Paco was here, he would say in English, please. There's a lot of confusing information here, so let's try to understand better what is this discussion between Kardec and the spirits, right? Basically, what the discussion here is, we are a spirit incarnated in a physical body, right? This physical body evolves from the minerals, the vegetables, the animals, and we reach the physical body. So we are here. This is an evolution of, in the material aspect, of everything that comes all the way from the mineral, right? The spirit is evolving from the spiritual principle, going through the learning phases that goes through to reach the individual spirit. When we are incarnated here at our stage of evolution, we have two aspects. We have the physical aspect of our lives and the spiritual aspect of our lives that we, the eternal spirit, can take it into consideration more seriously, or some people just prefer to ignore. They think that we are only the physical body and nothing else, right? But these are the question from Kardec is it looks that we are two souls, the animal soul and the spiritual soul. And it's not. It's a spirit incarnated that has a physical body. I am not this physical body. I have this physical body. I'm not even the spiritual body. I have a spiritual body. This physical body is subject to the materiality of the physical world. So it has instincts that brought from the animal phase. I get hungry. This is my physical body. I, the spirit, do not get hungry. My physical body gets hungry. I have other necessities that belongs to the physical body. I need to sleep. Do the spirit needs to sleep? The eternal spirit? No. But my physical body needs rest, otherwise stops functioning. So the necessities of the physical body connects us to the animals, because the animals have the same thing. They get hungry, they need to sleep, they need to procreate, right? Which is the same things we do here, right? So in that sense, we are close to the animals. But from a spiritual sense, from a spiritual evolutionary sense, we are not close to the animals because we already have an awareness. We have the understanding of our spiritual nature, of God. We believe in God. So that differentiates us from the animals. Now, the less evolved the spirit is, the more it yields to the animal instincts that exists in all of us. So a primitive spirit, first incarnation, let's say, of a spirit that just got out of the animal phase as spiritual principle. What does it have? Necessity of survival, of procreation, of defending itself, is afraid of everything that is around because it doesn't understand anything. So it's pretty much an animal with a little bit of a free will, right? Because it already thinks and makes choices. But the thought and choice process are very primitive, much closer to animals, right? And as we evolve, we become less and less dependent on our, or not dependent, attached to our material needs, right? When you understand that you are a spirit, an eternal spirit incarnated in a physical body, and the physical body is the instrument, very important instrument for us to use during our incarnation, we have to take good care of it, but not yield to the instincts that come from it, right? Some tendencies that our physical body has necessities, we are able to control. So some types of, and not all animals, but some types of animals, you put food in front of them, they will continue eating as long as you put food in front of them until they get sick. Some humans do the same, right? That's where we learn to separate ourselves, right? We need to understand better, control our inferior instincts. Animals cannot do that. They don't know how to control their instincts. It's instinctive, everything. We need to control. The more evolved we are, the better we learn to control our material impulses. But they are here, and we cannot not sleep. We can, but we're going to damage our physical body. If we damage our physical body, we are creating consequences for ourselves, creating karmas. Why? We are supposed to take good care of our physical body. If we are not taking good care of it, of course, sometimes you face conditions that it is what they are, right? But if we abuse our physical body, we are going to create consequences because we have to take good care of it. So that's what the spirits are trying to say here, that on our evolutionary path, we need to become more spiritualized and more aware of the necessities of our physical body and attending the necessities of our physical body, because it is an important tool for us to lead a good life, right? If you want to work and help others, which is our basic objective here, your physical body needs to be working properly, right? Because if you become dependent on others, you cannot work. So if you become dependent on others because, we reach a certain age and we are old, that's the natural process, then it's the natural process. But if we become dependent of others because we didn't take good care of our physical body, because we made mistakes on our mistakes that we are aware of on our journey, then we create karma for ourselves. Okay, I think that explains more or less all these questions, right? I don't know if you have something to add.
Keep trying to figure Kardec's mind to come out with this question. Come out with this hypothesis of two souls.
Two souls, yeah.
I mean, of course, I don't think he ever crossed his mind, but he put over there, what if somebody may think of this? Let me ask. Just for completeness.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Kardec here
it's just for completeness.
Yeah. Let me play dumb here. I think that's what he thought.
Yeah, maybe somebody will suggest that possibility. Let me put it out now.
Or maybe people were talking about this at that time. You know, remember, this was at the same time that Darwin was coming with the theory of evolution and
Slightly before that.
yeah, well, the first edition, right? The first edition, but the third edition is already
Yeah.
after, right?
Right.
So I don't know if this is in the first edition or not. So, you know, I think that that more or less explains this very long
So
question.
the point is, everything is progressing from the atom to the archangel, right? Question 540. Always go back to that question, right? So even the archangel, that archangel needs a reincarnation, not a perfect spirit yet, okay? Not the Christ yet. That archangel will have necessities of the material life. Gonna have to eat, gonna have to excrete, gonna have to, they have the desire to reproduce, have to reproduce, because they have the desire to do so, because this is part of our instinct. The thing is, when we are very primitive, instinct overpowers reasoning. Coming to a point that we evolved, some of us, that reasoning overpowers instinct. And going to come a point in which sentiment will overpower reason.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
606. From where do animals derive the intelligent principle that determines the type of soul bestowed upon them? From the universal intelligent element. So does the intelligence of humans and animals come from the same principle? Of course. But in humans, it has received an extension that raises it above animals.
Okay, so again, everything, we have God, we have the intelligent principle, and we have the universal cosmic fluid. Everything is this tree, one part of this tree. We have God, everything that reaches the intelligence, that reaches a spirit, comes from the intellectual, from the universal intelligent element, as the spirits call it here. Everything else, physical body, spiritual body, matter, antimatter, everything else comes from the universal cosmic fluid. Okay, so the intelligence of humans and animals come from the same source, the spiritual principle. But in humans, it has received an extension, meaning it raised above. It already is further advanced in terms of evolution, but the source is the same. Matter, all matter, the source is the same. Our physical body, our spiritual body, the universe, planets, the sun, all come from the universal cosmic fluid. It's just differentiations of the universal cosmic fluid. Okay.
607. You have stated that when the soul of a human being is born, it is in a state equivalent to that of human infancy. That is, intelligence is just beginning to unfurl, and that it is trying to live. Where does the soul accomplish this initial phase? In a series of existences that come before the period that you call humanity. Therefore, it seems that the soul is the intelligent principle of inferior beings of creation. Is it so? Have we not said that everything in nature is connected and tends towards unity? As we have explained, it is in those beings which you are very far from knowing that the intelligent principle is created, gradually individualized, and tries to live. Through its subjugation to a preliminary process, like germination, the principle undergoes a transformation and becomes a spirit. The human phase then begins for each spirit with the consciousness of its future, the power of distinguishing between good and evil, and the accountability for its actions. After infancy, then comes childhood, youth, adolescence, and finally mature adulthood. Do the greatest geniuses feel embarrassed because they were once formless fetuses in the womb of their mothers? If anything should humiliate them, it is their inferiority before God and their inability to probe the depths of the divine plans and the wisdom of the laws that regulate harmony in the universe. Recognize God's greatness in this awe-inspiring harmony that establishes a sense of solidarity between everything in nature. Even the thought that God would have made anything without a purpose and created intelligent beings without a future is an insult to the Creator's goodness, which covers all creation. Does the period of humanity begin on earth? The earth is not the first point of the earliest phase of human incarnation. The human period generally starts in worlds that are even lower than yours. This rule is not unconditional, and a spirit, upon entering the human phase, may be ready to live on earth. Such a case, while possible, is uncommon and would be an exception to the general rule.
Another one in English, please, right? Okay, so the intelligent principle goes through all the phases, reaches the human phase. It's in the state equivalent of human infancy. The intelligence is just beginning to unfurl. And Kardec asks, where does the soul accomplish this initial phase? Meaning, where before it becomes an individual spirit, it's coming through the evolution as we described before, the latest being the animal through the animal phase. And then the spirits talk about the evolution, right? The evolution of the intelligent principle that goes through the inferior beings of creation, that everything is connected. All the evolutionary path is connected. When you talk about plants evolving to animals, we talk about carnivory plants, right? Which is already plants going to the animal phase. So the more evolved animals are already close to what is going to be the primitive individual spirit, but are not there yet. So that's the latest evolvement of the spiritual principle with the rudimentary intelligence. And then if you think of the first primitive incarnation, it has rudimentary intelligence. It has a lot of instinct, and it has some rudimentary free will. You can choose to leave the cave or go back to the cave. An animal will go in and out of the cave only by instinct. A primitive human will have the instinct of go out of the cave and come back, but already reflect on it, right? Has the ability of choose if they are going to go out or come back, when to go out, when to come back, and then you accumulate this learning, and you teach and learn, and then you continue progress, and you distribute this learning, right? How did we learn agriculture? More evolved spirits incarnated on earth, new agriculture, teach the spirits that were here, they learn, they teach, that it continues, right? Like different than animals that do not carry on what they have learned to the next generation, and the next generation is always the same. Like almost say, a horse acts today the same way it acted 200 years ago. One interesting concept here that we haven't mentioned yet, which is the period of humanity begin on earth. The spirits tells us that our first incarnation as human beings did not happen on Earth for the vast majority of us, almost all inhabitants of this planet. So when we talk, which is something that people get very confused, our physical body comes from the evolution of the apes or the primitive source, right? Our spirit, we were not an ape on Earth. We didn't go through the ape phase on Earth. We already were starting our journey in a primitive world as a primitive spirit. When we came up to Earth, we had already many incarnations. So our first incarnation on Earth was already as an individual spirit in a human form. Okay, so we need to separate. Of course, science doesn't separate these and say we come from what is it? It's not apes, right? Primates. We come from primates. We all come. Yes, we have the same origin for our physical body, but not our spirit. Okay. Again, our spirit, we were once in the animal phase, yes, but it was not here. Okay, it was on a different planet. Okay. This is a concept that is not very easy to understand, and a lot of people have a lot of doubts and confusion about it. Okay. Okay, we have time for one more.
608. After death, are the spirits of humans aware of the lives that have preceded their human period? No, because it is only with this period that their lives as spirits began. Human beings can scarcely recall their earliest existences as humans, just as human beings no longer remember the earliest days of their childhood, much less the time they spent in the wombs of their mothers. This is why spirits tell you that they do not know their origins.
So here, what the spirits are telling us is that we are not going to remember the spiritual principle. We're not going to remember the phase we went through, the evolution at the animal phase. We can understand the process, and we are going to understand much better as we evolve, but we are not going to remember our own experience. Why? Serves no purpose, right? Why should we remember when we were in our mother's womb? Serves no purpose for us. We don't remember because it doesn't help us at all. We barely remember our early age, right? Some people remember the earliest memories are of a very young. My earliest memory was when I was less than 3 years old. But we don't remember when we were 1 year old. Why? Because there is no need for that, right? We need to remember what's important for what's useful for our progress. So we are not going, we are going to understand our progress through the animal, vegetable, and all the things, but we are not going to remember our own passage through those phases. That's what the spirits are trying to tell us here. Okay. Okay, I think, well, we have a couple of questions more, so let's finish this chapter. Please read the two last ones and we finish.
609. Once they have entered the human period, do spirits recall any traces of what may be called the pre-human period? That depends on the distance between the two periods and the amount of progress accomplished. Over a few generations, there may be a more or less clear-cut reflection of the primitive state. Remember that nothing in nature ever happens abruptly, and there are always links uniting the ends of a sequence of beings or events. Those traces disappear with the development of free will. The first steps of progress are slow because they are not yet supported by the will. As spirits acquire a more perfect consciousness of themselves, progress accelerates. 610. There are spirits who have said that human beings are separate from the rest of creation. Are they mistaken? No. But the question has not been fully developed. Similarly, there are things that we can only know at a predetermined time. Humans are distinct beings because they have abilities that separate them from all others, and they have another destiny. God chose the human species for the incarnation of beings who are capable of knowing their creator.
Okay, so again, as we evolve, the first question, can once they are a primitive being, first or second incarnation, do they recall any traces of what they call the pre-human period? They may, because they are very primitive. So during their state in the dreams or sleep state, what they're going to remember, they may even have flashes of their phase as the later stages of the animal phase, but it will be just flashes, and because they are not even completely aware of their existence as human beings, as everything is pretty much primitive. Yes, but it's not significant. What the Spirit tells us, nothing in nature ever happens abruptly. So there are always links uniting the previous one and the present one. So when we are too close to something, we are more likely to have recollections, some sort of recollections of what we just finished. When we go back to the spiritual world, we are going to remember very well this present existence because it was our last existence. Now, the previous one, we may have flashes because of some important things that we may need to remember from the previous ones. But 2,000 years ago, it's much less likely that we will remember anything unless it's relevant for us to resolve any trauma or to help us in any sort of problems. Okay, so then they finish here saying, as we become more aware of ourselves and we develop consciousness, the progress accelerates. Progress goes faster. So the more we learn how to fight our own imperfections, the more we evolve. Because we see the rewards, we internalize the rewards of overcoming our imperfection, then helps us fight the other imperfections that we have. Okay. And then the last one, when Kardec is asked if there are people that say that human beings are separate from the rest of the creation. The Spirit says no, but they leave a door open in the sense that, yes, we are different from animals, plants, minerals, and everything. We are individual spirits. The rest is not individual spirits, but everything comes from the same origin, the spiritual principle and the universal cosmic fluid, right? But yes, we are separate from the rest of creation in the sense that we have awareness of who we are. We question ourselves. Animals do not question if they are alive, dead, or where they are going. They don't have the reason. We reason, we question where do we come from, where are we going. We recognize and we bring the notion of a superior being, of God, in our conscience, right? Again, those that do not believe in God, they make a reasonably choice to not believe in God. It's not something that comes naturally, right? Because we bring the concept of God in our conscience. We make the choice of not believing in God, of being an atheist or agnostic, right? But it is a choice. It is not something that comes with us, right? So we believe in God. We animals do not believe or understand the concept of God. Okay? All right, we're done here. Elmo, anything to add here? No? Okay, next week we go to metempsychosis, which is an interesting subject, and maybe we'll start the moral laws. I don't know how many questions we have there. So we have this weekend, we have a very interesting lecture on Saturday by the United States Spiritist Federation. It's by Dr. Rafael Rezende, and he's going to talk about autism through the lens of science and spirituality. So he explores the autism spectrum, not only through the lens of neuroscience and genetics, but also through the deeper perspective of spirituality. And he draws it from personal experiences, scientific research, and spiritist philosophy. So it's for us to reflect on autism as more than a diagnosis, viewing it as a unique expression of consciousness and soul purpose, okay? So it unites, bridges science and spiritism, but to help us have a greater understanding, more compassion, and understand the meaning in the journey of neurodivergent individuals and their families. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting presentation. I highly recommend, okay? So this is Saturday, 11 a.m. through the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube page, International Spiritist Council YouTube page, or the United States Spiritist Federation Facebook page, okay? Sunday, which is the third Sunday of the month, we are going to discuss the Medium's book, okay? We started a new book on Mondays, Words of Eternal Life. The book is available for sale on our website and here at the center, if you are interested. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Sure. Thank you very much, John, for hosting, and thank you very much, Elmo. And for Philip, we thank you for reading for us this evening. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together again as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Book 2, Chapter 11, topic being animals and humans. Animals are part of the spiritual principle and possess instinct and rudimentary intelligence. They maintain individuality, but have no karma, and they have no freedom to connect with other creatures in the spirit world, and they do not have an understanding of God. Humans evolve both intellectually and morally and are accountable for their actions. The souls of animals and humans are distinct from one another. Everything is evolving from the atom to the archangel. Everything is connected in nature, and progress accelerates as spirits acquire a more perfect consciousness. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves now to remain and become the beacons of light, of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.